Hello, and welcome to All Things Cryptid. I am your host, Amanda Winter, and I am super excited to be here with you today. I know it's been a couple weeks, but it's the holiday season. Bet you didn't know I was going to be singing to you. I didn't know I was going to be singing to you either, so that makes two of us. Anyway, it's been kind of busy. You know how that goes. Actually, fun story, true story. I've been working a little bit on my genealogy. And so I was tracing my family back, and I was reading all these stories about the different Scottish clans and how they were fighters and warriors and all the amazing things my ancestors have done. And I stopped and I thought, I bet you my ancestors are watching me do a podcast on cryptids and are either like shaking their head in disgust or disappointment, or they're like, okay, yeah, get it, girl, okay, all right. But anyway, I just thought that was funny. Like, I come from all these amazing people, and I'm sitting here doing a podcast on cryptids, so I thought it was kind of funny and thought I would share. Today, we're going to be talking about the Philippines, and we are going to be diving into the world of the Duende, the tiny, magical, mischievous, sometimes helpful, sometimes terrifying beings that many Filipinos swear are absolutely real. And if you grew up in a Filipino household, you might still whisper "tabby tabby po" when walking past a tree or anthill, just in case. Today, we'll explore who the Duende are, where they come from, why they matter, and of course, we'll get into some real stories, creepy encounters, funny mishaps, and even moments that are surprisingly wholesome. So, settle in, turn the lights down, and prepare to meet the tiny guardians, or pranksters, of Philippine folklore. Duende, or Nuno sa Punso, meaning old man of the mound, are small, humanoid creatures no taller than a child's knee. They're often described with wrinkly skin, long white or black beards, little hats, old-fashioned clothing, and eyes that shine far too brightly in the dark. Their homes? Well, they're right beside ours, under the roots of old trees, inside anthills, near garden corners, beneath your floorboards, inside hollow logs or mounds. Filipinos believe these creatures can turn invisible, cast spells, bless people they like, and curse the ones who bother them. So basically, imagine fairies, goblins, and forest elementals, and kind of combine those and put them in the Philippines, and here we go. Long before the Spanish arrived, indigenous Filipino communities already believed in nature spirits that lived in rocks, trees, rivers, and mountains. When the Spanish came, they brought European fairy folklore, elves, goblins, dwarves, and Christian ideas of angels and demons. Mix all that together for a few hundred years, and you get the Duende we know today. A blend of indigenous animism, Spanish fairy tales, and Catholic superstition. But even with that mix, Duende remain ultimately Filipino. Their personalities and roles come from land-based traditions, rural lifestyles, and a deep cultural respect for nature. So, folklore classifies duendes by their colors, and each type has its own personality. White duende are benevolent, friendly, and sometimes wise. Black duende are angry, easily offended, and capable of cursing. Red duende are pranksters, harmless but chaotic. Green duende are nature spirits, neither good nor bad. And gold duende are treasure guardians. But remember, in folklore, these traits vary dramatically depending on the region, the storyteller, and honestly, the mood your grandmother was in that day. So, Duende aren't all curses and revenge, though. Some stories say they help. Some say they sweep floors overnight, return stolen or lost items, protect children, warn people of dangers, share secrets or magical herbs. In some provinces, families even leave food outside for the good duende to keep the peace. And now, it's time for our first story. The story comes from an elderly woman in Batangas, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She swears it happened to her grandmother, who lived alone in a wooden house by the rice fields. Her grandmother said that every night she washed dishes and swept the kitchen, she would wake up and find the floor even cleaner, shining, spotless, as if polished. One evening, she pretended to sleep and waited. And there, just past midnight, she heard tiny footsteps, soft, quick brushing sounds. She peeked through the mosquito net and saw a small figure, no taller than a stove, sweeping the floor with a broom made of tiny twigs. The duende, sensing her watching, he looked up, smiled, bowed politely, and vanished. From that night on, she left a plate of rice outside the back door. Every morning, the plate was empty and the house was spotless. Some people get fairies. Filipinos get magical janitors. Honestly, I love it, and I want my own magical janitor. I want my own duende, but you know what? I'd probably get the one that, hides my stuff or curses me. But anyway, back to it. But where there is kindness, there is also chaos. Negative encounters often involve mysterious illnesses, sudden fevers, kids getting lost outdoors, objects disappearing, misfortune, or someone accidentally stepping on a duende's home. That's why Filipinos always whisper "tabi tabi po," which means, "Excuse me, please let me pass. I respect your space." It's folklore, but it also reflects Filipino politeness, even toward invisible beings. And now, a story that highlights exactly why people take duende seriously. In Laguna, a construction worker named Joel shared this story. One day, Joel's crew was clearing a small lot to build a house. There was a large anthill in the center, tall, hardened, old. The foreman said, "Break it down." Joel swung his shovel. At the moment the metal hit the mound, Joe felt a sharp pain, like a nail driven into his ankle. By lunchtime, his foot had swollen twice its size. By evening, he couldn't walk. Doctors couldn't explain it. No fracture, no infection, no sprain. Then an older coworker pulled his wife aside and whispered, "You need to see a folk healer." The healer performed a ritual and said, "You hit a Nuno so punso. He is very angry." She offered rice, flowers, and tobacco at the construction site. The next morning, Joel's swelling disappeared completely. Doctors were stunned. But to the locals, that's just a Tuesday. Duende beliefs shift from island to island. In Tagalog region, they're mostly tied to anthills and old trees. Tabi tabi po is big here. In Bicol, duende are mischievous and are often connected to volcanoes. In Visayas, they are often associated with the capre, a giant tree spirit. Sometimes the capre is the big brother of the duende. In Cebuano folklore, duende live in earthen jars behind houses and crave sweet food. In Icolas, they appear a shadowy figure dressed in European-style clothing, a Spanish influence. In Mindanao, They are part of a larger ecosystem of spirits, some benevolent, some dangerous, some tricksters. Wherever you go, the Duende change shape, but never disappear. And hopefully I did not butcher those names, but I probably did, and I'm sorry. So now we're going to be talking about a couple stories. A mother said her 5-year-old son went missing one afternoon. No open gates, no unlocked doors, just gone. Neighbors searched everywhere, fields, the creek, nearby houses, for hours. Nothing. Then an old woman said, "Look near the belay tree." A child's laughter came from there. They rushed over and found the boy sitting under the branches, smiling dreamily. When they asked why he wandered off, he said, "A tiny man in a red hat called me. He said he wanted to play." The adults just looked at each other. No one had seen a man. No footprints, no broken branches, just the boy and the tree. They thanked the tree and offered food and whispered "Tabby tabby po" all the way home. The boy never went near that tree again. Not all stories are terrifying. Some are just Filipino comedy. Here's one. A grandmother kept accusing her grandkids of stealing her dentures. After an entire day of chaos, the dentures were found under the calin, which is a clay stove, and I probably mispronounced that because apparently I can't read or pronounce words, but it's fine. Her neighbors simply nodded and said, "Red Duende, they love shiny things." Imagine being a supernatural being and you're out here stealing someone's grandma's teeth. Priorities. Am I right? In Nueva Ecija, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, a farmer said he once saved a small anthill from being destroyed during a flood. He dug a trench to divert the water and protected the mound with stones. That same year, his crops grew twice as tall as his neighbors. He said small figures would appear in his dreams, bowing. "Thank you," they said. "We will watch over your land." Was it luck? Maybe, but he believed it to his dying day. You get what you give. So, of course, there is skepticism, and scientists say Duende sightings come from misidentifying animals, sleep paralysis, dehydration, pareidolia, which is seeing faces and patterns, psychological suggestion, and cultural storytelling. But anthropology reminds us folklore is not always about literal belief. It shapes behavior, values, environmental respect, and identity. And in the Philippines, Duende are tied to environmental connections. Duende lore protects nature. People avoid cutting down ancient trees because something might live there. They leave anthills alone. They respect forest. Whether or not Duende exists physically, they've guarded the environment for centuries. This is more of a recent urban encounter, wildly shared online. Teachers at a school in Quezon City said that every year around the same week, strange things happen in the older classrooms. Chalk moves on its own, tiny footprints appear on desks, small giggles echo in the halls even at night, and lights flickered only in one specific room. One afternoon, during a school event, a group of students claimed they saw a very small old man sitting on top of a flagged wooden podium. They weren't scared, just confused. They described him as like a grandpa, but tiny and glowing. The teachers didn't believe them until one night, a janitor cleaning the halls heard tapping, like tiny knuckles knocking. He followed the sound to room 3B. The door was locked, but the tapping was clear, rhythmic, like someone drumming on wood. When he whispered, "Tabby tabby po," the tapping stopped instantly. The school eventually blessed the room, not to exercise anything, but to apologize. Apparently, the podium had been moved during renovations, disturbing the spirit's home. After the blessing, the strange events stopped. Make of that what you will. Even in cities, TikTok and Netflix era, Filipinos still believe, or at least respect, the possibility that Duende exist. Why? Because Duende stories connect families. They pass down values, they teach respect, explain the unexplainable, and remind people to look at nature with wonder. Folklore survives when it helps people make sense of the world, and Duende do exactly that. So, whether you believe Duende are real beings or just metaphors woven into Filipino identity, one thing is certain. These tiny figures cast a very big shadow. They connect past to present, land to people, fear to reverence, and maybe, just maybe, the next time you walk past a tree or anthill or a quiet garden corner, you'll whisper, "Tabby tabby po." Not out of fear, but respect. So, while we're in the Philippines, we're going deep into the forest, mountains, and winding trails, where travelers swear there's something watching them just beyond the tree line. A creature tall enough to tower over a grown man, thin enough to look almost starved, and with a face unmistakably equine. This is the Tikbalang, one of the Philippines' most iconic and unsettling cryptids. Let's begin. What does a Tikbalang look like? Every region seems to describe it a little bit differently, but the core image remains the same. A tall, bony humanoid with wild matted fur, impossibly long limbs, the head and feet of a horse, glowing, ember-like eyes, and long fingernails or sharp claws. Some accounts emphasize its size. One famous encounter comes from San Mateo, where a boy described the creature as so tall that when it squatted, the shins of its legs rose above his head. He said it had long ears, a hoarse mouth, and even short horns on its forehead, with eyes so large and bright they seemed to follow him even when he closed his own. Whether all these features are shared or regional, one thing is certain. No one ever describes a Tikbalang as something they'd want to meet twice. They're known for being shapeshifters, tricksters, phantom. The Tikbalang isn't just a monster lurking in the trees. It's a supernatural shapeshifter. Many stories say it can appear as a beautiful woman, a handsome young man, a familiar loved one, or even a horse with a pristine coat. But the creature can also turn invisible, leaving behind only the sound of hooves on soil or a sudden shift in the wind. There are mountaineers who swear the Tikbalang often appear as a hiking guide, walking ahead, pointing out the trail. But the giveaway? The guide is barefoot, and in the mountains, no real guide hikes barefoot. The origins of the Tikbalang go back long before Spanish colonization. Pre-colonial Filipinos already told stories of phantom or spirit hauntings in the mountains. Interestingly, these early descriptions didn't mention horse traits at all. The equine image didn't solidify until the late 1500s and 1600s, about the time horses first arrived with the Spaniards. Some scholars believe colonists may have influenced or shaped how the Tikbalang was imagined, but regardless of origin, the creature quickly took root in local consciousness and stayed there. One of the Tikbalang's most famous abilities is its power to confuse travelers. You could be walking a path you've known since childhood, but somehow every turn loops you back to the same tree. Trails rearrange themselves. The forest seems to spin, and hours slip by unnoticed. Many victims are later found dazed, famished, or wandering in circles. Some never return with a clear memory of what happened, only that they felt watched or guided or lured somewhere they didn't intend to go. There's even a superstition. If you think you're being led astray by a Tikbalang, turn your shirt inside out. Folklore says it breaks the creature's enchantment. Some regions describe the Tikbalang as a weather manipulator, capable of summoning sudden torrential rain, violent gusts of wind, or whirlwinds that lift its victim off the ground. These stories are especially common in rural farming towns where natural disasters are often attributed to supernatural beings. Most tales describe the Tikbalang as a mischievous spirit, more prankster than predator, but some myths paint a darker picture. A being that abducts or preys upon travelers, especially women, to satisfy its desires or ensure procreation. Stories vary dramatically by region. In some, it's a dangerous forest demon. In others, it's a lonely spirit that just wants company. And sometimes it's simply guarding its territory. But whether playful or malicious, every version agrees on one thing. The Tikbalang should not be underestimated. One well-known story tells of a boy walking home at dusk who felt a looming presence behind him. No matter how fast he walked, the creature's steps matched his. Eventually, he lost his way, stumbling through the forest until he collapsed from exhaustion. He later awakened with a fever, convinced he had been targeted by a Tikbalang. Another story comes from Lipa City, where a boy named Paulino was fetching water when he saw his mother waving him deeper into the trees. But her voice felt wrong, her movements too stiff. By the time he realized something was imitating her, it was too late. He was lost in a dark forest, terrified and alone. A search party found him hours later, disoriented and trembling. Even today, people from rural communities speak of seeing a tall, horse-headed silhouette standing between the trees, only to have it vanish the moment they blink. There's a charming superstition in the Philippines that whenever rain falls while the sun is shining, it means one thing: a Tikbalang is getting married. This idea, a supernatural wedding during a sun shower, appears in many cultures worldwide. Spain has the same concept, but with witches instead of Tikbalangs. Regardless of origin, it remains as one of the most enduring pieces of Tikbalang folklore. So, how do you tame a Tikbalang? Folklore says the Tikbalang can be subdued, but only through a dangerous ritual. To gain its loyalty, you must jump onto its back, tie it with a specially prepared rope, hold on while the creature tries to throw you off. If you survive the supernatural feat and becomes your guardian. In another version, the Tikbalang occasionally gives a golden hair from its mane to someone it trusts. The hair is believed to grant strength, speed, invulnerability, or even the ability to command the Tikbalang itself. Because of these legends, Tikbalang hair charms are still sometimes sold today, though these are, of course, not real hair, but plant fibers created as mystical amulets. So now let's talk about the Tikbalang today. Despite modernization and the spread of cities, the Tikbalang remains one of the strongest figures in Filipino folklore. It appears in literature, theater, visual art, local ghost stories, and even modern TV shows and comics. For many Filipinos, especially those living near forests or mountains, the Tikbalang is not just a story, it's a real presence. A reminder that the wilderness is alive, mysterious, and far older than human memory. In a world increasingly shaped by technology, the Tikbalang endures, standing tall in the imagination, somewhere between spirit and monster, guardian and trickster, a creature waiting in the trees. So as I wrap up this episode, I just want to thank you again for going with me to the Philippines and hearing about the Duende and the Tikbalang. I enjoyed learning about it and I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I appreciate everybody who listens to these episodes. So please continue to do so. Like, share with your friends. Give me a review. And also, if you want to write me and request a cryptid that I do, you can. Or if you just want to write me, it's at allthingscryptid13@gmail.com. That's allthingscryptid13@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. I could not do any of this without you. I appreciate you. So until next time, keep searching for the unknown.